Welcome back, Soulful Society, to Soulful of Wellness,
the multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
and certified coaches
who deliver tips to live your most authentic, balanced, and anxiety-free life.
Thank you for joining us again for another week of wellness.
And if you're new to the Soulful Society, welcome!
Welcome!
And thanks for being here. Today, we're talking toxins.
Although your body's natural detoxification system is running 24/7, thank you, body, our detox pathways need a little extra TLC from time to time.
There's only so much we can do about the air we breathe. While we can't solve all the world's pollution problems in the next half hour, we can give you some great ways to minimize environmental toxins in your little piece of the world.
Today, we're focusing on what you can control when it comes to minimizing and detoxifying your body from the toxins that you're being unintentionally exposed to on the regular.
Hello, listeners. If you enjoy today's podcast, please consider subscribing so you'll get a new episode delivered automatically every Thursday morning.
If you haven't already, please leave us a rating and review. We would love you extra. It helps other people find this podcast so they can become part of the Soulful Society as well. Tap that 5-star and just provide a few words of feedback.
Let's dive into toxins.
Toxic, I'm slipping under. Do you know that Britney song, Kit? Or is that
I
just a
do. Do you remember the iPod Nano?
Of course.
I had, was it the mini? What was the one that didn't have a screen at all? It was about 1 inch tall and maybe an inch and a half. It was a shuffle. I had an iPod Shuffle, only I didn't know how to use it. So there were 2 songs on it. They were both Britney Spears. I don't know how they got on. I don't know if it must have come with it or something. And one of them was Toxic.
Okay. All right.
So I therefore know that song well, as all I could listen to were those 2 songs.
Good, as you should. Britney is my generation's queen of pop. Yours was Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
Ours is Britney. And then they did collabs, which is just even more iconic.
Bringing the generations together, much like we do here at Soulful of Wellness.
Yes. So, interesting topic today because obviously like we grew up in almost like 2 different worlds in a way, but now here we are on this planet experiencing so much toxicity that we're not even consciously aware of, let alone intentionally, living toxic lives. It's crazy.
In fact, when I think of toxins, I think of like Exxon Valdez and the oil spill, or maybe not quite that big, but I think of how I used to get my lawn treated. I paid somebody to spray chemicals where I live, where I play, where I hang out, where my dogs run around in the grass. So I think of things like that, and they are very important. What I don't think of that is really very important and even more present because it's day in, day out all year long are the things I'm breathing, touching, taking in through my skin, and consuming.
Yeah, the most frustrating thing is so many products here in the U.S. are being... They're passing the FDA, they're passing all of these quote unquote inspections, yet they're making us sick and like destroying our bodies. It's like our bodies have an incredible filtration system and detoxification system, but they can only handle so much until it's time for us to, intervene.
And we got to help them out. When we were researching this episode, I was reading about how anything that says you need to take this, do this cleanse, do this juice fast to detoxify your system, that's a scam. Your body is like a self-cleaning oven. It doesn't need help ridding itself of toxins that we've taken into our system. It can do it, but we need to help it out by putting the minimum amount we can in the first place.
And we'll get to that like when we get into the specific tools and tips at the end of the episode, as far as like what you can do today to start taking your health back. It's just wild how much of this is out of our control.
Yeah.
And, like we said before, I mean, air pollution, we can start with that. I mean, there's not much we can do this.
Right. You got to breathe.
You got to breathe.
I'll hold my breath. Problem solved.
No. Much worse for your anxiety, too.
Yeah.
You need to breathe.
Keep breathing. It's a tool. It's a necessity. In my bedroom, I have a relatively new, few months old, air purifier. It purifies my air, and it also acts as a little bit of a white noise machine. Not very loud, but just enough to kind of drown out some car sounds. And I looked just now before recording. It's made by Blue, just spelled like the color.
I requested on my wedding registry an air purifier.
Ooh, good one.
And thank you for, I think it was MJ who bought that for me. And I just find it to be such a necessity for the home. I mean, particularly like I have a lot of allergies, and especially to dust and mold, like clinically allergic to that kind of stuff. So that kind of put that in the forefront of my mind. But I just keep encouraging people, if you're not going to buy it for yourself, I'll gift it to you. Air purifiers are so important. I mean, it's not a sexy gift, right? But it's a good one.
It's sexy enough. Not hacking coughing is sexy. So if you think you don't need one, try it out, one that's returnable, although you're not going to return it, because wait till you see what it looks like. I'm looking over at mine right now. And the outer sleeve, you can see the coating of dust. Now, as you can see behind me, I'm in the stages of redoing the bedroom. So I've been painting and sanding and stuff. So it's probably worse than it usually is, but you can see the coating of dust on the outside. And once you see that, you realize like, oh, okay, I'm glad it took that out of my air, because I am now not breathing at least that much of it.
Wait, this is embarrassing. So my air purifier right now has this light on that I'm pretty sure is telling me to change the filter. So I really need to do a better job of the upkeep of the device. Here I am just like, all right, do your thing. Cool. I'm never going to worry about you, but they need upkeep.
You might want to turn it off until you replace it, because once that light comes on, I think it is so full that all it's doing is shooting some of the stuff it's filtered out back into your room at this point.
Ooh. Yeah, no, I have it off because I was kind of concerned about that. This is not a sponsored statement, but I will give you guys some advice that my functional medicine practitioner gave me, because we were just talking about air purifiers as we were going over my mold detoxification plan. Because, side note, I got testing and found out I have 3 times the amount of mold in my body than the average person, which is so fun, right? So fun. Okay. 2 brands that she recommends are Air Doctor and Austin, just like the city. So Air Doctor air purifier and Austin air filter. I have one that I got off Amazon. I need to look up the brand, but I'll put it in the show notes. I don't think that it really matters as long as you are getting an air filter and putting it in an area of your home that you think collects the most dust, because that's a controllable, right? Like we can only control so much when it comes to environmental toxins, but right there, you can help yourself in your own home.
Well, you brought up a good point. You said put it somewhere that you think it's going to do a lot of good. I have it in the bedroom because ideally 8+ hours a night, I'm breathing the air in this particular room. There's no other room that I spend 8 or more hours in. So think about where you're spending your time, and maybe you get more than one.
My goal is to have one in like every floor of the home. So we just bought a townhome, and there's several floors in it, and I have a goal to acquire one on each floor. Like I'm pretty savage about it. It's just so important.
Vacuuming a couple times a week is your next best line of defense. You're supposed to clean the filter in the vacuum before you vacuum each and every time. And I didn't know that. That's not something that's
what?
on
That's
my
not common
consciousness.
knowledge.
No, not at all. And I run the vacuum robot because, well, I'm lazy. I never remember to clean the filter. I do remember reading that you're supposed to empty this little compartment on the side of it before you run it every time. I just don't think of it until it tells me it needs to be cleaned. I wish it would tell me as soon as I turn it on, like, hey, remember you're supposed to go dump this little compartment over the trash can. So listeners, little reminder to myself and to you, clean it out, run the vacuum, ideally 2 or more times a week. If you live in a home that was built before 1978, you very well may have lead-based paint. Yes, there's paint on top of that. We've all repainted since then. But apparently it's still shedding into your environment.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man.
That's some of what that dust is. It's shedding little microscopic leaden particles. Sorry.
So that's actually a really good segue into, if we're talking about environmental toxins, we talked about the air, and now we're talking about the home. Specifically, the side effects that come from these toxic substances are pretty serious and very real and valid if you're experiencing any of these effects. And they could also be coming from your cleaning products as well, which we also want to chat a little bit about. And there's lots of controversy. Like, every article says something different, so it can be pretty overwhelming. You can't be perfect, right? But we can reduce our amount of exposure, because the symptoms are just, they're scary, right? Brain fog, fatigue, allergies, elevated blood glucose, and increased biomarkers for inflammation. As well as, if we're regularly being exposed to these toxins, they're endocrine disrupting chemicals, so they're impacting our hormones, which impacts a lot of our functioning.
Yeah,
So,
pretty much all of it.
If you think, oh, I'm just going to kind of, skip over the, lead-based paint, I probably have that, but it's just not something I'm willing to prioritize. Like, start to take inventory of your symptoms. How are you feeling? Are you feeling any of those symptoms that we talked about? It might be time to get that checked out and to prioritize that. I mean, my brother Nick just had to move out of his apartment because it had black mold. Like, that's an unlivable condition.
Yes, for that mold remediation. That's a big deal. Another one that I was just reading about was the radon, which is a naturally occurring, but really bad for humans, substance when the soil breaks down. And you don't have to have a basement to have radon in your home. And apparently it's very inexpensive to get a test kit that you send off to make sure you're all okay. So that's one that if you're experiencing some of those symptoms, maybe more so than you were previously, that's something to look into. Those things that are easy to check and not very expensive to check,
Might as well.
go ahead and check them.
Teflon. Obviously, that was a really big deal.
Yes. All the Teflon coated cookware. It was so great. Nothing stuck. It helped it not burn. Downside, gives you cancer.
And the crazy thing is they're still out there. There's still pans with Teflon that have PFAs in them. Extremely, extremely dangerous. So it's worth looking up. Is the pan that I bought have Teflon in it, because it's still around. It's still around.
It breaks down and releases the harmful chemicals when it's heated. Well, that's what cookware's made to do. And along those lines, never, ever, ever, if you're still like I occasionally do, I get lazy and I microwave in the plastic, and I know better. And I know I should take out a plate and put it on the plate, but I think, I'm not even heating it all the way through. I'm just taking the chill off from it being in the fridge, and I super quick just put it in the microwave for a quick little zap. But think of how often I do that. Not every time, certainly, but every now and then I do it, and that all adds up. I'm eating and breathing chemicals every single time I do that.
Speaking of plastics, microplastics. Now, this is a huge issue because I'm not going to lie, like, this is one of my biggest flaws. It's like, can I call myself an environmentalist or a champion of the environment when I drink hella bottled water? And it's not only a problem for the environment. I will say, you guys, it's because our sink water is like really gross, and we live in an apartment building, so we can't put any sort of filtering system on it, and we can't fit a Brita in our fridge. But did you know that they found microplastics in basically almost 100% of humans on Earth? They even did studies in tribes that haven't had contact like with the outside world ever, and even they have microplastics in their bloodstream. They actually did a study where they tested some blood that was kept in a blood bank from World War I, and that was actually the only blood they could find without microplastics.
That is fascinating. So it's all modern developments, recent developments. I think of how many times I've left a plastic water bottle half full in my car, in the sunlight, in the heat. I may as well be sticking it in an oven because honestly, the cars get well over 100 degrees. And then I don't drink it when it's hot, but later it cools down. And okay, it has fully leached chemicals into my water. We also can't control what has happened to that bottle of water prior to owning it. It may have sat on a loading dock in any of a number of places. It may have sat in a hot truck overnight. It may have sat out in the sun anywhere. And we don't think about these things. That's why we're trying to, I feel now like I'm trying to do scare tactics or something. That is absolutely not our intention, but we're trying to just raise awareness so that you get curious about your life, about your lifestyle, about where you might be unwittingly, even unknowingly, letting more chemicals into your life than you mean to be, than you're aware of. And start thinking about, well, what are some small, not too difficult things I can do to make some healthy changes around this?
And I will say to our listeners in Europe, the EU is doing a lot more in terms of protecting against these things. But to our American listeners, we got to be even more self-pioneers and looking out for ourselves. And again, you're right, Kit, not trying to scare anyone, just trying to bring that awareness to empower you and empower ourselves. I have so much room for improvement in this area, like so much. There's only so much you can control. You can't be perfect in life. You certainly can't be perfect in terms of not being exposed to chemicals. So it's okay, right? It's okay. We're doing our best as imperfectionists.
Another big category, so we kind of talked about what we're breathing. We talked about what we're consuming. We have not yet talked about letting chemicals in through our skin. And a lot of fabrics are treated with really harmful carcinogenic toxins to be fire retardant, to be stain protective, all of those substances that we put on fabric, on sofas, that stain resistant coating. We now know, and maybe people, not me, knew earlier, but I now know all of that stuff is toxic to us. So when I'm sitting with my shorts on and my legs on the sofa, I'm letting that in through my skin. My beauty routine, my nightly and morning routine, at least twice a day, that's not even counting in the shower. What I wash my face with, what I apply to my face as far as moisturizers, sunscreen, all the different layers of things. As I get older, there are more layers that I'm putting on my skin. If each one only has like one little bad thing, but it's mostly good for me, well, at least twice a day, every single day, I'm putting several toxins onto my skin. I need to put more time into looking into some of the products I've been using. Some I know are golden.
Right.
Some I'm just hoping.
Just even the idea of, oh man, I got to do so much work to figure out what's toxic and not. I think I would say picking maybe one category out of this episode that you feel empowered to look into and adjust in your life, whether it's the air filter, you're like, I want to go through my makeup, or I want to go through my skincare, whatever resonates, take what resonates, what lands, and leave the rest. You know, we don't have to change our entire lives or get overwhelmed by, you know, the amount of change that we feel is necessary.
I love that suggestion and I'm going to take that suggestion because I know perfectly well I'm not going to do all the areas. It's just too much.
And speaking of things that we're putting on our body, clothing. Okay, this is like a sort of more of a low key area that where most of us aren't paying attention to. I mean, I'm completely guilty of this. I just saw, we were talking about this earlier, Kit, about the potential toxicity on our clothes. I just saw an article about Shein, which is a fast fashion online store. You guys, first of all, I used to shop here and get what's called Shein hauls. It is so cheap that you can get like 12 items for like $100. It's insane, right? Their clothes exceed the safety levels of lead. Their clothes contain more than 20% of the lead products posing skin and eye irritation problems. This stuff causes headaches, nausea, vomiting, like brain issues. Their products are just ridden with toxins that are like seriously harmful for our health. They disrupt our endocrine system, skin problems, breathing problems, allergic reactions. And I never would have thought of that when it comes to clothes. I never thought it would have been able to just stay on the fabric.
What are you washing your clothes in? And think about the detergent, fabric softener, dryer sheets. You need to look into all of that because anything that works is getting embedded in the fibers of your clothing or your bedding or the towel that you rub all over your body when you get out of the shower. So you are taking any of those potential toxins, any of those chemicals, and you are rubbing them onto your body.
I didn't even think about that. Right. The way to conceptualize it is, what detergent are you using? Are you cool with that being all over your skin and getting into your bloodstream?
Mm-hmm. Even fragrances.
Fragrances are like the worst thing in skincare products and in anything where if it says fragrance, it's just run.
Right. And sometimes that's all it says is it says fragrance. Like it's so cryptic. It doesn't give any details or specifics about it. Just there's fragrance in here.
So bad, right? And then we have the phone. So the phone is quite literally the dirtiest thing that you own. So particularly when we're traveling, it'll be a good idea for all of us to get either alcohol rubs or a spray that you can spray on a cloth and wipe your screen with, because your phone goes with you everywhere. It's picking up every germ you can think of.
It's also emitting electronic waves when you're holding it up to your face and ear or head. Kaylin and I, we both use wireless earbuds. I got to think that cannot be good for us. I'm not saying throw them away. Obviously, I'm going to keep using them. I'm just saying think about what you're doing to your body and the cumulative effect of all the different things, and then make the best choices you can make for yourself. I'm going to make a choice to keep using my earbuds until they start telling us some definitive information about the great harm it's doing to my brain, at which case I'll maybe taper off. But for now, I'm going to keep using them. But I'm just going to think about all the ways I'm introducing unnatural things into my body.
And that's why, like, it's frustrating that shopping organic is so expensive and living a healthy lifestyle is more expensive than not. So I think all of us just taking inventory, like what works for me, you know, where can I afford to maybe spend a little bit more? Is it on vegetables? And where do I just want to keep it easy and keep it, you know, inexpensive? Because, I mean, I could tell you this, the most highly sprayed crop with pesticides is corn.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is in probably half of our food these days. Corn syrup or corn processed food, I should say.
We could do a whole episode on food. I think that's why we didn't really even touch on it. I feel like food is even its own category, and I'm sure, you know, you've done your own research and you really got to pick what works for you. But to wrap this up, so what can we do? We've talked about some little options here and there, and really it is take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Essentially, it boils down to supporting your own body's detoxification system. So supporting your liver health, all of the different organs, your hormone system, everything that has to do with detoxification. Work with a practitioner to get the right supplements, the right vitamins, and the right labs for your specific body and your specific situation. They could do labs on heavy metals, mold, all different sorts. I actually did a whole panel of this stuff, and it was fascinating to see. It's actually very interesting. And once you get those labs in, then you can work with someone to come up with the right plan. Now, if you're not feeling as heavy of symptoms, you can just do simple things in your life, like staying properly hydrated throughout the day so that your kidneys can eliminate the water-soluble toxins, and working up a sweat through exercise or a sauna to remove the unwanted compounds through your skin, another detox organ. Adding plants to your home, or taking your shoes off at the door, wiping your pet's paws before you get in. I didn't know this, that your shoes could literally be carrying E. coli. I mean, it's crazy. So just little things that you can implement in your life to detox if, working with a practitioner doesn't work for you, or if it's just too expensive right now.
Anything that says it's going to detox you. Oh my gosh, I was reading about the craziest things that I didn't even know existed and don't need to know existed, because right now I'm going to go on record. I don't like to tell anybody what to do or what not to do, but I'm going to say, do not waste your money on these things. Apparently there's foot pads that you put on your feet at night, and then allegedly at night while you're sleeping, it pulls toxins out the soles of your feet. There's just a chemical in these things that when it combines with human sweat, it turns black. And so you peel it off in the morning and go, ew, gross, look at all this gross black stuff it pulled out of my body. Nope, all a big scam. There's other things that say that if you're constipated, your stool is leaching chemicals back into your system. So you take this thing and it binds with the stool and then it comes out. I won't go into too much detail, but it's all bogus. That is not happening. Your body's all set. It is not leaching chemicals back into itself. Remember, it's a self-cleaning oven. It does not need help. So these things at best are a waste of your money. At worst can actually be harmful.
Good plug there. Seriously, be careful. Yeah.
I know that was like a little soapbox, and I don't often get on a soapbox, but that truly was, and I stand by it.
No,
in this case.
It was well fitted. It makes sense. I mean, those detox teas, all that marketing, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. So we hope you learned a thing or two, something that resonated in today's episode. If you like this episode, please hit that share button with a friend. And if you haven't already, we would love to get a review from you. Here's some feedback. Feel free to email us anytime or reach us on social media. We love hearing from you.
A little reminder to hit that 5th star. And while you're there, as Kaylin said, if you could just jot down a couple words of feedback, we love getting that. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us for another week. Peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light.
The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers.